Vice President Mike Pence is on his way to this month's Olympic Games in South Korea, and he's not ruling out the possibility of meeting with North Korean officials while he's there.
Well, let me say President Trump has said he always believes in talking, but I haven't requested any meeting, but we'll see what happens.
Well, this comes after Secretary of State Rex Tillerson addressed the possibility of a meeting between the U.S. and North Korea during a news conference in Lima, Peru. Tillerson has been an outspoken advocate of diplomacy when it comes to dealing with the country's nuclear threat. CBS News State Department reporter Kylie Atwood is traveling with the Secretary of State in Lima, Peru, and she joins us now. So, Kylie, you asked Mr. Tillerson about the possible U.S.-North Korea talks. What did he say when you asked him about that?
Well, so Tillerson came out yesterday here in Peru at a press conference and said, we'll see what happens. When I asked him, if North Korea comes to the U.S. and says, would you meet with us on the sidelines of the Olympics in South Korea, would the administration accept that invitation? And by Tillerson opening the door, not slamming the door on possible U.S.-North Korea talks, that's a really big step. And it also slightly got ahead of the White House, because before Pence left for his trip, where he's going to be leading the delegation of the U.S. to the Olympics, the White House had said that the vice president wasn't seeking talks with North Korea. Now, since this has happened, the vice president has actually come out and mirrored what Tillerson said. He said that, the president is someone who is looking for talks, and he wouldn't reject those talks, though the U.S. still maintains that they are not the ones who are making the phone call. And so they are basically waiting for the North Koreans to reach out.
So then, Kylie, what can we expect from the vice president while he's in South Korea for the games?
Vice President Pence is doing what every vice president would do. He's leading the American delegation. He will be celebrating the U.S. Olympians who are there and really being the face of the U.S. government at the games. But leading up to this trip, one of the primary focal points, as we've been talking about, is the fact that North Koreans will have athletes there. They'll have a delegation there. They'll be marching with the South Koreans. And so one of the other messages that the vice president will be pushing while he's there is the fact that all of these countries who have been sanctioning North Korea need to follow through on those sanctions. And we saw a report from the UN just last week saying that the sanctions aren't necessarily working 100% because North Korea has been able to gain an income of about $200 million in the last 9 months from exports that were actually banned by those UN sanctions. So the vice president has a really tall agenda in trying to push for those sanctions, but also maintaining this posture that the U.S. would potentially be open to talks with North Korea.
And Kylie, what will Mr. Tillerson be doing in South America? We know obviously he's there in Peru right now. What can we expect from him during his trip to Latin America over the next couple of days?
So this is a trip that Secretary Tillerson is kind of casting as 2018, the year of the Americas. And he's saying that because 2018 is a year when the G20 and the G7, these really big summits for leaders across the world, are going to be meeting in South American countries. And Peru, where we are right now, is one of those countries. So Tillerson's trying to shine a light on the Western Hemisphere. It's also his largest trip, most extensive trip to this region since he's been Secretary of State for just over a year now. But Tillerson's also pressing for this hemisphere, all of these countries, to do more trade with the U.S. because right now, most of them, their largest trading partner is China. And so Tillerson is pressing for them to turn to the U.S. for economic gain for the U.S. And he's also casting it as better for these countries because he says the U.S. isn't a predatory investor who's, going to turn their backs when these countries need their support.
All right, well, it'll be interesting to see if any deals do come out of this. Kylie Atwood in Lima, Peru. Thank you so much, Kylie.
Thanks a lot, Anne-Marie.